we're also not going to overreact to this game number one. But there does need to be a pretty substantial increase from GENG, both in individual performances, outside of Paze and Chovy, who like the main criticism is maybe full send it in that bot side play and just try to make it work. And like that's really all you can say for them. Whereas obviously, I think that's a very good adaptation. Canyon and particularly Keen and Lance, I think having a bit of a rough one in that game. It's going to have to be a big pivot, and that's the peanut trifecta right there. I know the Ivern is still available, but while I think Ivern is strong, I don't think that Ivern is quite as oppressive in many ways, especially not when you pick up the early Smolder, and this pick just keeps rising in priority, Valdez.
Something I like about GENG's drafting is that they don't wait 2 games in a best-of-5 to make big changes. They say, well, seems like Life were very ready for that. Let's change it up. They're very confident that they can play multiple different styles. They don't have to stick to one. They don't have to play Maokai. And they just ban it away, and they take the Smolder down, and they say, okay, we're going to play a totally different comp. Now, it might eventually just end up as, 3 tanks and 2 carries, which kind of is, pretty meta nowadays. But I do like this kind of flex in game number 2, at least, as the MF, very high priority for the side of Viper. Zyra being hovered for Peanut, and it will be locked in.
As, there we go. The Maokai performance was not satisfactory, and you can see the joy on Canyon's face. It was a joke. Canyon always looks exactly the same. But he gets to play Nidalee, which we all know he absolutely adores. And the Ezreal, I think you can run it back. I think the Ezreal was fine. Didn't really feel like it was a problem. They're going to instead priority pick the Cassante here to force an immediate response. But it does mean that now you have a pretty reasonable confirmation that it's going to be mid-Smolder. Bot lane Smolder was still a possibility. We've just not really seen to be that strong. You don't really get your stacks nearly as quickly.
Especially against MF.
Yeah, that's not a fun lane. You don't really get to interact a whole lot. And there are 2 options. Either you go for counterpick for Doran, which is what they end up going with. And I wouldn't have minded the Jax. Again, I know the Sejuani isn't there, and I imagine that was part of the reason why they wanted to go for it. But the Renekton, to me, hasn't really felt the same way. I do think that specifically Renekton Zyra is a strong combo, the same way that we have seen with the Renekton Nidalee.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of interesting how GENG, they go for this earlier pick on the Cassante, really trying to force out the response as soon as possible, which means that now it opens up some bans for the support role, which we oftentimes see. The Rel is going to come through, the Senna, the Ashe also taken away from Paze this time. So no focus on the Ezreal. So they say, okay, well, if you want to play Ezreal again, that's fine. You can go ahead and do that.
And that Blitz pickup in the last game, I imagine, is something that GENG is also going to shy away from. We were talking about Braum. Braum is great into Nautilus, great into MF. I don't think it's necessarily as nuts here as it was in the last game. We are obviously in a different style. I think the Zyra also takes away a little bit of power compared to how insanely strong Braum can be into Sejuani. Rakan is still available. Alistar is still available. And, it's Delight. I imagine he's going to pick one of those.
Yeah, or you just pick mid and you save R5 for support. Leone not banned this game. It was banned in game number 1 in the first rotation, and this is Zeka's pick in this meta.
So we go Kalista, Leona? I'm like double checking for the fact that the Leona is still... I just love Leona into MF specifically. I feel like we get a ton of value out of that pick, but it has dropped in priority for sure. And this is an extremely aggressive bottom lane with still a good amount of late game fallback. Does mean that your engage is pretty lackluster, but you look at the Hanwha comp, I don't think you're too worried, and Renata does go really hard into what Hanwha Life have so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's great into a couple of the picks just straight up, but also eventually can get to the back line and deal with the MF. Also, pretty good into Leona, but Leona just picked for its power here, for its ability to get some really consistent engage alongside of it. That is kind of Delight's calling card as well, so kind of makes sense that they pick it up in this spot.
Now I'm wondering if Hanwha Life is going to look for a lane swap. Renata, Kalista is probably the strongest 2v2 lane that we still have, especially after the archery bot lanes have kind of fallen out of favor. We'll see whether that is going to be enough. Obviously, a really strong... The one criticism I do have of the GENG composition, which is something they've been able to work around before, but Nidalee, to me, works best when you've set up in multiple lanes. The best setup you have is Cassante, who isn't, you know, on the level of something like a Renekton, where you have guaranteed easy point-and-click lockdown. So that's definitely going to be something that will make their mid-game hard to actually pull off. That said, when it comes to Canyon and Nidalee, you do kind of just trust them, even though the pick has fallen off considerably. And I want to echo again, I think that Canyon, in that last game, just didn't have the impact that he needed to. Expect to see something very different this time around on the Nidalee.
That's what you would hope for if you're picking Nidalee, and it is Canyon, so that is what we've come to expect. They also do have a couple of extra carries with the Smolder this time around, which they did first pick. They give Zeka Yone, though. We'll see how it goes here for game number 2.
소환사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
All right, game number 2 of the upper bracket match. Again, winner of this goes directly to the grand finals.
Oh, and I want to highlight something. Chovy actually going for the Grasp here into a melee matchup and into the amount of upfront burst that's available for Hanwha. That actually can end up being a really big difference maker in some of these early to mid game skirmishes, where Hanwha Life is going to be looking to just burst out the Smolder. So, big fan of that setup. There'll be a lot of extra health. And yeah, I wasn't really expecting a lane swap in this one. It made sense in the last game, but Hanwha Life did turn it around very nicely. Could be looking towards an invade here, though. I do have a Callista Renata, so we'll see. Ward has been placed, and we'll get swept here.
You're going to hit the spear onto Zeka already. Peanut Dasan is red, so this invade definitely happening at this point in time. Delight and Viper trying to spot this. But Canyon's just going to start on the Wolves. So some question mark pings coming in. They don't know 100%, but they have a very high likelihood in their mind that, yes, Canyon is in the jungle. Lehens just kind of running through that, and he is going to get a shield up, but nice little trade from Delight and Viper.
Yeah, good early trade to come through here from the Hanwha Life bot lane. Obviously not too much of an issue for Lehens. Yeah, there we see Chovy going for both Grasp and Bone Plating, so really looking to be as durable as possible. And the main reason why we've seen the Smolder mid so much, originally was a counter pick. BDD was the one who brought it out first, and it was very successful as it ended up beating GENG in that KT match. And then we've now kind of gone full circle where people are like, you can just blind it. And in mid, it is so much harder to deny stacks the way that it is in bot lane. So he just feels like he's back on the clock where he was way back when you were playing in bot lane. And we're seeing Zeka, there's not really a whole lot he can do about this.
Yeah, Peanut's a little bit lost too, as Jonah Strong really zooming in on that. He goes into his blue side jungle, he's like, well, there's nothing here. I guess I'm just gonna go up to the top side and try to take away some of Canyon's jungle. Should be successful at that, especially with the Renekton on the top side. It does allow you a little bit of extra safety. And meanwhile, Canyon just trying to hit level 3, and maybe with the stack wave and bot, look to get a dive going.
Yeah, that is a great adaptation from what was a pretty lackluster. They did have level 2, but still, you can definitely dive this, especially with bailout.
Meanwhile, I mean, Zeka is taking a decent trade, but here's the dive. Viper getting pretty low. The Ignite is in. His first blood going over to Kalista, but now the turnaround's here. And at the end of the day, I mean, they take out Viper. He's denied all of this farm, and the TP is also used by Doran.
Yeah, definitely a really big win here for GENG because they invest one flash versus both of Viper summoners, a TP, and Zeka is going to be able to catch at least this wave. So I actually like the answer from Hanwha Life here. So rotate Viper to mid, he catches the mid wave. Then Zeka goes towards top, and then you can catch the next waves and kind of go from there. But this is exactly what we needed to see from Canyon. In the last game, he just didn't really do anything, and then the team fighting also. I think it's a hard game to play as Maokai because you have to play pretty forward into an MF specifically, which we know Maokai is better reactively. as we take another look at this, a lot of the initial CC also goes down on Lahens, but it's not the end of the world. FaZe and Canyon gets to do their damage, and I just don't think there's really anything you can do in that scenario here for the Hanwha Life bot lane. And even with the TP, plays successful for GENG.
Yeah, I feel like the bailout also enabled, maybe it didn't enable it, but maybe denied the first blood away, I was thinking, but either way, gave an extra turret shot over to Lahens as he tanked another one, even though...
Oh, yeah, look at this wave state. This is basically the polar opposite of what happened in the last game. What I do like is, again, these call buys from Doran, even on a pick that traditionally, you know, with Jax it makes sense, with Renekton we don't see this as often. But knowing that GENG they don't play towards Keen at all. Like, Keen is picking Cassante, and then he has to lose as little as possible, which is why Doran, I think a large part of why he got the MVP or the POG in the last game as well, because he was able to make a lot happen even despite that. And Dragon is going to go over. So GENG really course correcting after what was a very, very solid game number 1 by Hanwha Life, with so a good amount of mistakes, I think, on the GENG side, as the Grasp stacks and the Smolder stacks are being farmed up.
This is the issue about playing Yone into this, is Lahens, wow, going to trade flashes here with Peanut. That is a trade up for GENG. But yeah, you're playing Yone. It's a melee match into Smolder, who you might expect, hey, you know, early on, probably not that strong, but Smolder's just sitting there stacking a million stacks and stacking also the Grasp stacks, and you don't really have much kill pressure at all because, yeah, you get Chovy low, maybe you push him out, Zeka's looking for it now, but, you know, eventually Chovy hits 6 himself, he throws down Mom, he can stay safe, he's got Flap still, and at the end of the day, I mean, Chovy's just sitting there farming and getting stacks, and Zeka isn't really doing anything at this point in time.
Really isn't, and oh, look at the bot lane wave state as well. This is a kind of a nightmare scenario where you are playing in a 2v2 that is heavily lopsided already. FaZe also was able to pick up an early kill, making it even worse. Another confirmation as well that Peanut's on the top half of the map, so they can just fully deny, even with Lahens on the back here. Canyon really wants to smite this. See if he's able to get away with it. Would be very funny.
Might just throw a spear to play it safe. He is going to hit Viper, but that's not his target.
Like, look at this freeze, though.
Yeah. It's really nice that everybody on GENG seems to know how to freeze and the power of it. I think that, you know, especially if you're not specifically trying to get an aggressive play going, you might as well just do this, as this has been talked about many a time, but it's nice to see it in practice in pretty much every lane. We saw Chovy do it in game 1, and we see Keen and FaZe doing it here in game 2. And it's, you know, it's the little things. And GENG do have just a little lead at this point of 400.
We'll see if GENG read this, because if they know that Viper and the lighter lane swapping to get out of this 2v2, there's no TP available. So I actually think this is going to be a colossal amount of gold that's going to go into GENG. So I think Hanwha Life are basically forced to dive here as Keen. Oh boy.
Well, that wasn't really the dive you were looking for. I mean, they can still try to go for it again. Keen trying to pull the wave and going on to Viper. He knows he really doesn't have anywhere to go, so decides to get aggressive with it and just goes down.
Yeah, actually like that. If he can like find an angle and like pull through the wall, maybe somehow make it out. So GENG will get the shove towards bot side, is going to get a considerable amount of plates and should also come out ahead in the play trade. But I like the response from Hanwha Life, right? Like, don't stay in the unplayable 2v2. Instead, rotate across the map. And they are able to get the punish as Keen again. Not the best at times. This time, though, he's not playing into Smolder. So eventually he will reach a point where he can play the video game, which that's not, maybe not now, though.
Yeah. It helps that he's not Nasus as well.
Oh, reinforcements are on the way. Might be a bait. Oh, lands the show.
Oh, they try to go on a Canyon. He's just in Italy. And the bailout comes in, but they're not going to get a takedown. The kill goes to Peanut. And now a massive bullet time goes to Hanwha Life. Viper with the perfect positioning. And Hanwha Life Esports, it was like the next one up. They knew that GENG were going to be there, and they collapse immediately.
The trap set ends up being by Hanwha Life, and that's why you give the light. His Leona, beautiful engage on top of the Nidalee. Obviously, the one weak point of this champion, if you get locked down, you just end up going down, and Hanwha Life turning it around early on. This started with their bot lane getting kind of unceremoniously destroyed thanks to the freeze, thanks to the early pathing. As we take another look, I imagine he was like maybe trying to go and either get a trade kill, but then this.
Look at the vision.
Yeah. Absolutely huge here. Yeah, Bela doesn't do anything because there's no one to kill. And GENG end up paying so heavily. 2 kills going over to Hanwha Life. Turret going over to Hanwha Life. They don't even get the bot lane turret in return. And now a colossal gold swing here for a team that just hasn't been able to actually stand up to GENG for the entirety of the year, Valdez.
Yeah, it's turning into a very interesting series because we really liked how GENG kind of made changes coming into Game 2, but now immediately Hanwha Life Esports are like, yeah, cool changes. We're still going to win this early game. We're still going to be very proactive, and we're still going to play fantastically. So, you know, I wasn't a believer even after Game 1, but now seeing this early game, I'm like, man, maybe Hanwha Life can actually do it. Obviously, it's still very early on here in Game 2. I don't want to get too excited, but at the same time, this is looking so much better than we've seen in other series, as you mentioned, between these two teams. And to see GENG actually be challenged is refreshing.
It really is. And it's necessary, right? We always see when one team is too dominant in the long run, doesn't end up quite working out for both the team and I think the region as a whole. Do note that FaZe is monstrously strong. Level 8 right now, basically a solo laner when it comes to the experience, and they do have the Renata ultimate, so Hanwha Life taking a bit of a gamble here.
Oh, the aggressive TP, but they're trying to go forward. Everything misses for Hanwha Life, and now Zeka gets hand shook, and he gets shaken down to the ground, taken down, and Delight as well. This engage goes horrifically wrong for Hanwha, and GENG are looking to punish Viper. A million sticks in, Amiga's taken down. It is 4 kills to the side of GENG plus a dragon, and GENG slap them down just like that.
All right, calm down, casters. That was a bit much when it comes to cursing.
They proved us wrong.
Yeah. Woo! As I said, FaZe insanely far ahead, insanely strong. If the play does not start with taking him out, which Hanwha Life knew that part, which I appreciate. The problem is he has cleanse. So like this initially looks like a great engage from Delight, and then Zeka whips the ultimate. I don't know what the idea behind Peanut's ultimate was, but it wasn't quite what it needed to be. And then the fact, like even Liverlands dies, this place is just, this is an immense win. He gets out, thanks to the bailout.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, things are looking up. They are able to still get to the required amount of grubs because Canyon, after that play, immediately went towards top side and only got a single one. So that's a nice little win for Hanwha Life. But that's not ideal because, again, person getting the kills on GENG are Chovy and FaZe.
Yeah. You know, I didn't want to get overexcited, but I think Hanwha Life Esports did. Sometimes we talk about the difference between Nautilus and Leona, especially when the engage support meta was coming in. It's cleansable CC for Leona. And you mentioned it. The second the cleanse comes in, it's just kind of over for Hanwha Life Esports as Chovy's just going to kind of face check and die. Will he die, actually? Couple of damage could go into him and take him down. One auto from Peanut will get the kill, but Peanut might have to pay for it as FaZe is just huge. Gonna pick up his 3rd kill as well.
See how tanky, like Chovy almost made it out there, which was, that was a, don't face check if you don't have cleanse. That was a
yeah.
Bit rough there. Particularly given that you knew that Hanwha Life had vision because they just taken the grubs. So big mistake from Chovy there. That's a nice influx of gold, but it's very telling that with the steel caps done, between the grasp and the bone plating, it is actually pretty tough to get through this smolder already. And I wonder, I imagine Lions didn't have his bailout or used it earlier because did see that he was in the area. And you get the trade kill. As we just take another look at this. I think the moment you see Peanut walk up there, you know that things are not good. Ah, actually, oh, that was really cutely done by Delight. So Delight actually stuns Lahans to deny him to get in range to get a bailout. That was well done.
Yeah. Nicely done. Ends up being a trade of kills. Peanut gets the shutdown, though, so maybe a little bit of extra gold goes over to him.
Yeah.
Pace did get a 3rd kill, so he's really an issue. We see a lot of times where Kallistas can sometimes, you know, be really hampered by their range and not really do a huge amount of damage, but when you're this fed,
yeah,
I feel like you could just kind of jump around in the fight, and especially with Cleanse, there's really not any hard lockdown unless Zeka gets you. So
I think for Pace in particular, it's also one of those scenarios where his biggest strength is his positioning, and he's had a ton of Kalista games that have gotten a little bit silly when it comes to the kill scores. Want to highlight as well something that isn't going to be relevant now, but Chovy can actually utilize his Q to burn people through the Zyra plans. And it's not something that's very fun to play into as Humble Life. I don't know about this. I do. Don't. Yeah, they seem.
Do you or don't you, Chronicler?
They have made the same conclusion, and fortunately, decide the better of it.
Yeah. Definitely a good call. I think if you have a better setup and you're able to catch someone, then maybe, but very nice spread from GENG. They know what Humble Life Esports' comp does, and they're able to approach it safely and essentially kind of escort Humble Life Esports out of the Rift Herald pit. We're not gonna, well, actually we will. That is a missed cannon. Chovy trying his best to just farm stacks and kind of messes with that one, cancels the auto. Not the end of the world, but you'd really like to get your Smolder online as soon as possible.
Really is a rare game where Chovy is actually behind in CS. It's Smolder. It's not going to be the end of the world. Has hit 125 now. And also sitting on a good amount of resistances, as mentioned before.
Yeah, it's a really fast stack timer, actually, because you'd say, hey, you know, 125, he's pretty far away from 225, but the second you hit 125,
yeah,
obviously your stacking becomes immensely faster. You see him setting it up right there. And so we're probably on pace for like a 21, I would say, maybe like a 22 at latest if he gets roped into a bunch of team fights and stuff like that.
It kind of depends who he's up against as well. I feel like against Renekton it's a little bit easier to get some pot shots, whereas with Yone, obviously if you misstep, has a lot easier access to getting on top of the Smolder. Chovy doesn't have flash still though, and Humble Life, their composition, I again want to remind you, I think the initial setup has to be good. That's a great start, as Pace does just kind of face tank that. Does have some sustain, but
I feel like this is happening to GENG a lot, where they're kind of just running into things. They're extremely confident to just go in, as now, speaking of which, Delight gonna get handshook, he's just dead. And just like that, Humble Life Esports lose pretty much their most important tool when it comes to the engage, and now they're gonna have to give up a 3rd Drake to GENG. It's Ocean Soul, it's not the biggest deal, but for GENG, they're gonna happily just walk away with the soul if you give it to them.
And this is part of the pivot that we saw GENG make into heavy early game, right? Right now, sitting at its soul point, what is it, like 17 minutes? That's kind of insane, Valdez. Yeah, 17 minutes, very early.
This is a very different Cassante, but we'll see if they can get it done with 3 members, as, yeah, he's just going to be taking down. The sheer damage from these 3. If you hold the Cassante in place for long enough, will be enough to take him down.
There is only a certain amount of fun that's allowed to be had by a team in League of Legends. And unfortunately for Keen, two games in a row, he's not getting anything. His amount of fun has been giving over to the rest of his teammates. And he just has to kind of accept that this is his fate in life. Nice catch there by Humble Life. Doesn't mean the mid lane turret is going to go down, because that was a 3-man investment towards that bot side.
Yep. And GENG really capitalizing on that. You saw Viper had the bullet time to wave, so not really able to push them off the turret afterwards. So GENG, they get that mid-outer. You see Chovy in the top side just trying to farm, just trying to chip away at the turret if possible. And get some stacks from the Renekton and a little bit of a bonus. Well, hence not able to deny anything here on the red, but a big rotation up from GENG. Peanut is going to spot this coming in. And with no wave available, doesn't look like GENG are going to stick around for too long unless Delight wants to get frisky. There's the handshake. Delight is totally fine.
Getting handshake over a wall into a wall. That's not great, Valdez. As this, he had flash. maybe overestimating how tanky he really was, but if he flashes, like, obviously it's a big cooldown.
Yeah.
I think maybe caught off guard a little bit by the amount of damage that was coming out of GENG, as, yeah, a bit of a tragic flash there. Doran already started the windup and it is an auto attack, so it's just going to go off. And as a result, guaranteed lockdown for Zeka, which means Peanut can follow up very straightforward from there on out. And I think Peanut being there is actually a pretty big deal because, again, Keen is going to mostly go for armor, as mentioned. Yeah, 1500 gold behind. Not the best of times.
Yeah, I mean, Whole Life Esports, you know, you look at the golds. Obviously, the gold is in a really nice spot for GENG on their Kalista. The Smolder's doing pretty okay as well in terms of stacking. So GENG are going to be, you know, kind of sailing into the mid to late game, which is really their comfort zone, I would say, especially in recent bunch of weeks towards the end of the regular season here in playoffs so far. Whole Life Esports still have extremely reliable engage. I think the cleanse is still an issue for them on the side of Pays, but, you know, Chovy gets out of position, you can take him down. Canyon gets out of position, you can take him down, even Lahens. And if you catch them off guard, Whole Life Esports still have a lot of tools in their kit to get some really crispy engages off, and they're really going to have to rely on that if they want to win in this mid game.
I do actually like the defensive itemization that comes through to acknowledge that as well. Canyon already going for at least an arm guard, can build that into a full Zhonya's as well. Imagine Pays is going to go for the Terminus next, which is another example of an item that really makes you suspiciously beefy, as Chovy, again, wants to try and farm some stacks.
He's at 189.
Oh, Fate Skull being attempted to get a catch on Peanut there, but he does just make it out. That ult alone, probably not going to be enough. Really, this Baron hit as well, I feel like that's the dream for Renata. Being able to...
Trying to go in on a Peanut here. That is a very nice ult from the side of Lahens. Doran flashing in, trying to make something happen on a Pays, but he's just hopping forward. Hops into Leona, and he's got the bailout, so he's not scared. Gets another kill, but now he's super low, and they can't take him out. Delight, he gets bitten in. Another huge handshake from the side of Lahens. And GENG, they just chop him down.
This kid is crazy, Valdez! This upped it to like 4 people!
He's nuts!
With the bailout! And the last time I saw Pays have a Kalista performance like this, nobody was talking about him. Might be a little bit different this time around as the Baron gets started up.
Yeah, and it's very early on, but it's only Zeka who's here. So it is a free Baron. You got the tankiness, you've got the Kalista. It's an easy take out of this. Kalista with 2.5 items. And now he got the Baron gold as well. He buys a Wit's End. Let's take another look at the Pays highlight reel. And the Lahens one, by the way.
Yeah, Lahens gets a really good ultimate. Great, forces the immediate summoners out of Peanut, so Peanut's not really in the fight. And Doran tries to hard force onto the Kalista with Cleanse. And then the fact that Pays is just hopping forward until the that bailout timing from Lahens, absolutely beautiful, by the way. Wait until the final moment. And then there... I think it was the heal, because Viper was just looking for the final auto. Heal coming through, and now GENG have the Baron empowered recoils.
Oh god, the engage Renata, but very nice buffer from Zeka.
Yeah, but now that cooldown is gone. Like, that's one of your big wombo combos. We'll see if Viper and Peanut can pull it back.
I mean, they have to try to stop this one. They don't want to give Ocean Soul over. Zeka gets the knock up here on a Chovy, but that is Smolder, level 14.
Oh, the burn!
Yeah, the burn already coming through. It's online in 22 minutes, and the Ocean Drake does go to GENG. And now they're just ripping them apart in this team fight. It is not a close one as they get the execution. Double kill for Pays as well. And even King gets to have just a smidgen of fun as he picks up a kill of his own, his first of the game. But yeah, GENG have really just run away with this one.
Yeah, it's a law of equivalent exchange. Unfortunately, with how much fun Pays is having, only a little bit left for Keen.
Yeah.
And this game, Valdez, particularly given how Hanwha Live's draft looked, unless we get some really big mispositions of the key carries on GENG, I think this one is just kind of donezo. As
I feel like Doran is just dead.
Yeah.
I mean, with red buff here as well, I mean, he is Dominus and Renekton, but just too far behind. He doesn't have flash either. He's trying to slice and dice. That is a missed spear, but it just doesn't matter.
No, with the Leandris especially, like, because he has a ton of health but not a lot of resistances, so you just slowly chew through. His pace is like, How was it? Oh, love.
Oh.
Wait, yeah, the
Yeah.
red reset.
Well, I think Peanut might die anyway, as they don't necessarily have to dive this turret, but they will. And you know what? Why not? As he is legendary, as he hits now his 9th kill.
And it goes back to what you were saying in the draft, and it was, in my opinion, one of the biggest weaknesses that we saw with GENG, particularly at Worlds last year. The willingness to adapt and pivot in a draft when the initial game plan isn't working out. Right, they go for the triple jungle ban onto Peanut, end up securing the Smolder, which was a prior pick for Hanwha.
Yep.
And this game looks very different from game number 1.
This makes them a really scary team. I mean, GENG haven't been challenged very much, and some teams would collapse when they finally get challenged, but GENG are not that team. It's a very nice lineup here from Zeka, but he's all alone. So yeah, it looked really cool, and you know, I'm sure the Yone fans out there are clapping their hands, but it doesn't do anything. And they can't really do anything. I'm not really blaming him, but at the end of the day, Hanwha Life Esports are just too far behind as the minions chip away at the inhibitor, and GENG are definitely looking much better in this game too compared to game 1.
Yeah, they have Ocean Soul as well, so a lot of what could be poke also not sticking. As Lahans, at this point, already focused the ultimate, or got the ultimate out of Zeka, right? So they don't really have anything to friend Pays. The fact that there's a Smolder in this game, and like Chovy had his burn, and it just doesn't really feel like it's relevant.
Let's listen in. He wants someone to peek him, and they do.
볼게.
I'm gonna go for this.
몸 대야지. 예, 종이야 있어.
Tank for me as Zonius.
가자. 이거 이번에 탑 사이?
Pays calling a lot of plays. I guess from ahead, when everybody kind of has to play around the Callista, it means that Pays just kind of have to pull some more strings than perhaps he would normally do. Which is not too surprising. And here's Zeka once again, but where are you going back to, buddy? I mean, he's probably going to have to flash away, or no, they're just not going to overchase for him. Probably a smart idea. They don't have too much vision in the enemy jungle.
Imagine the damage that would have done if he actually got the full stack transfer on the Desire. It would have been very funny. Doran is on a flank, which... What type of... There's a bunch of different type of flanks. The pool bay level flank? Like, what are we talking about here?
I don't think it's quite pull bay, but it's getting close, as now the engage is just going to come out and the light just dies. And guess what? Doran also just dies. Hanwha Life Esports do not get to fight in this game. They do not get to play the game anymore. The gold lead isn't that gigantic, but it feels like it's 10,000 more than it actually is. The top lane Nexus turret nearly falls and will be just barely saved.
It's fine, Valdez. That's a strong turret.
The Nexus hasn't fallen
yet. That will defend the Nexus for the foreseeable future. I think last game we had and I think GENG have earned that. We had a lot of faith in GENG to maybe pull it back. This one, I do think is kind of done. Now, the cool part, though, is that after this game, what is Hanwha Life's pivot going to be? Because they're going to be on blue side for the first time. It's really going to change up how the draft is going to be looking. And it's also, this is a completely different look from GENG than what we've seen of them recently. To see how Hanwha got there. I don't know what to tell you. They're like 7k gold behind. They can't get up to any of the carries. Renekton is a handbag at this
Flip
point.
Baron.
Yeah, why not? That's good. Top lane. No, not the Nexus turret, Valdez. No!
I think it's going to fall.
That's okay.
Poor Rodney in the top lane. No, he actually lives. And GENG just going to move in and take the Baron themselves.
Yeah. They got both side lane inhibs. And now get Baron and run through to mid.
Yep.
Ooh, little window there. Could have been stolen by Peanut if he was allowed near the pit. Which he wasn't. Maybe Elder Flip for the fun? Eh, come on, Jet. No, then.
GENG don't like fun, they like winning, okay? And, yeah, it does look like they are going to win this game number 2, unless Hanwha Life Esports have some miraculous surge of gold in this one. But GENG gonna do it the old tutorial way, take out every single inhibitor And every single engaged tool that the side of Humble Life Esports have, they've already taken out the light as the Zyra comes in, tries to disengage for them, and Paze is still just hopping forward. A lot of damage has been done to the non-main characters in this game on the side of GENG, but not much has been done to deal with Paze as the bailout is able to hop forward, takes out the Renekton, and takes down the game. Game 2 will go to GENG, and we've got a series on our hands.
Huge pivot after a rough game number 1, and we bring the score to 1-1. This one, I still like a lot of what Hanwha did. That lane swap in particular, the way that they've been able to punish Keen for what feels like not only 2 games, but like, what is it, like 3 to 5 separate plays in a row, continuously just punishing the K'Sante off on the side lane. That's big. But this time around, GENG had a bot lane that was a lot more proactive. The Renata felt a lot better than the Blitzcrank did. And we will be going off to an even series 1-1, and Hanwha Life, I assume, gonna move over to the blue side. Yeah,
I think after a couple of games of red, they will say, yeah, let's try our hand at the blue side of the Rift. And a lot of talking, a lot of discussion here after this one. As you mentioned, really the most exciting thing is to see how Hanwha Life are going to pivot here in game number 3. As we take a look at the damage, Paze is on top. We've seen Callista games where she's kind of sitting at the bottom and the mid lane's carrying. She's got like 5k DPS, even her support can do more. Not in this one. Nope. Wasn't one of these games. Really, really different look. I'll see whether Canyon gets his hands on the Nidalee again and what the pivot from Hanwha is going to be. I got a good feeling about this series, Valdez. Yep, it's looking pretty good. I think both of these teams have a great read on the meta and have prepared excellently for this one. We're going to take a break, guys, and have the space to break down game number 2. We'll be right back.
나 타워 깨는 거 갚을게.
얘네 존열 써서 뭐 안 빨려도 되니까. 얘도 노플이고. 한번 볼까?
한대 해봐 할것 같은데.
레오나 공, 밑보공 조심해, 밑보공. 빨리 지마, 빨리 지마.
가자.
존에 노고.
가자.
나 너무 빨리 했다, 이거.
괜찮아. W 있어요?
나 더블 있어.
끝내야 돼.
더?
W 있지?
있어. 껐어? 뭐라? 꺼내?
펄도 너무 심심한데?
좋았다, 또 하나.